Thank you so much for being here. It really is a pleasure to be here with you, and it's an honor to speak with you. For the last 20 years, as John indicated, I've contemplated television in terms of markets, meaning, and money. I started with Dallas Smythe's notion of the audience commodity and the history of the market for broadcasting ratings in the United States. I focused on continuities in demand in that market and discontinuities over pricing in the market for advertising slots. In the ratings market, advertisers and networks both demanded measures of bona fide consumers from their selected monopolist. But in the market where advertisers bought slots from networks, advertisers preferred to pay lower prices than networks preferred to charge. These dynamics shaped the ratings monopolist's choice of methods and ultimately influenced the market for programs. There, networks sought new programs that imitated last year's ratings hits, and program producers designed new shows to be both entirely familiar and simultaneously completely new. That's a tough one to pull off. For me, that led to a series of case studies on cable television, commercial constraints on television content, and the effects of legal and regulatory changes on corporate structure. I became very interested in the rhetoric of neoliberalism as it played out since the Reagan administration in the United States and the Thatcher government in the United Kingdom. In many countries, the privatization of television to provide choice became a neoliberal rallying cry. It was translated in the United States as deregulation to provide competition. But in the US, the outcome of deregulation, accompanied by the gutting of antitrust law, has led to an unprecedented regulation, and let me start that again. But in the US, the outcome of deregulation, accompanied by the gutting of antitrust law, has generated an unprecedented integration of media industries. Neoliberal policies have allowed companies to operate in as many media industries as possible and to integrate those operations both vertically and horizontally. Thus, in television in the US, say News Corporation, we see that company vertically integrated in television because it produces television programming, distributes television programming, syndicates TV programs on local channels, broadcasts TV programs on a network, and runs and syndicates TV programs on cable operations and distributes cable channels via direct broadcast satellite. All of these owned by News Corporation, creating vertical integration. Now, in some of those operations, News Corporation is also horizontally integrated. For example, it owns multiple production units. It owns 2 national networks in the US. It owns multiple cable channels and a satellite system that covers the globe. With its internal markets for television production, distribution, and delivery, News Corporation has the option of corporate synergy, of feeding all of its television markets from television properties that it already owns. And because neoliberal policies allow News Corporation to own operations in as many media industries as it likes, News Corporation can synergize its operations in journalism, advertising, theatrical film, animation, television, recorded music, TV stations, TV networks, cable channels, satellites, and new media in order to create and differentiate brands. Branding requires tight control over the main elements of a property, especially its symbolic universe, and the ideas, names, claims, etc., used as cultural reference within that universe. I call this commercial intertextuality. By commercial intertextuality, I mean the webs of meaning that connect all of the products associated with a brand and that imbue any particular product within the brand with its commercial authenticity. Here, my research has focused on Warner Communications' use of the Batman character from 1984 to the 1989 release of the film Batman with Michael Keaton, along with Janet Wasco, who will speak to you, I understand, this year as well, and Mark Phillips. We assembled a team of researchers internationally to look at Disney as a brand, how Disney maintained itself as a brand, and people's memories of what Disney meant to them as a brand. I've also traced commercial intertextuality and synergy as it transformed the failed TV show Star Trek into a multi-brand franchise that's going on its 40th year, and which National Amusements, its ultimate owner, is considering rebooting, a la Time Warner's reboot of Batman in the last movie season. Now, that said, I do recognize that, as Stuart Hall reminds us, every text has the potential for polysemy. Viewers can engage a text and read it with or against the grain. And previous owners or licensors of properties may have spun commercial intertexts at odds with those of the current owners. But in this age of transindustrial conglomeration, with its attendant practices of corporate synergy and commercial intertextuality, the current web rests on the business strategies of the current owner. So that's what I've been up to for a couple of decades. It's been a lot of fun. In the last few years, I've been able to integrate my research on ratings, on liberal versus neoliberal policy, on commercial TV in the United States, transindustrial conglomeration, synergy, and commercial intertextuality in a book that looks at TV, which I'm going to plug here, just as a little commercial intertextuality of my own. And the book is called Why TV is Not Our Fault. And that assertion forms the backdrop for my comments today. To date, much of the research on corporate synergy, commercial intertextuality, and transindustrial conglomeration has focused on cases where the transindustrial conglomerate commits fully to exploiting a property. I began to ponder this in June as I started sketching a book on corporate synergy and commercial intertextuality. And following the dictates of my master's thesis advisor, George Gerbner, I found a title for it. Dr. Gerbner always said that if you don't have a title, you don't have a project. So watch out if you have a master's thesis advisor, they may change your life. My title in this case is Webs of Meaning, Streams of Money. And as I contemplated that title, I thought it would be unfair to readers to only present cases where synergy fully worked. And so I began looking for case studies to do that would allow me to examine truncated instances of corporate synergy. That is, to look for a case where the conglomerate did not fully commit to entirely exploit the property. And that question brought me, perhaps inevitably, to a deathless piece of television. And let me just show you the cover so you can recall it. This unforgettable piece of television run 5 times on Fox Network, Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction. I figured it was late in the afternoon, and so perhaps a slightly more challenging artifact would be a good choice. Now, this case brought together 4 companies of unequal power and status: News Corporation, 1013 Productions, Trimark Holdings, and Kiviat Green Productions, sometimes known as Kiviat Productions. Of course, we all remember News Corporation from the 1990s as the owner of the Fox network, of 20th Century Fox Pictures, 20th Century Fox Television, 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, and other media operations. Most people probably remember 1013 Productions, which was owned by Chris Carter, and still is, and which created one of Fox's major hits, The X-Files. Any X-Files, P-H-I-L-S? Good, good, hello? Good. The other 2 companies are not especially memorable. Trimark was a minor independent firm that acquired, produced, and distributed theatrical movies. It's probably best known for the Leprechaun series, in which a homicidal leprechaun wreaks havoc. It also produced made-for-TV movies and straight-to-video movies. These were all repackaged under its Vidmark label. Vidmark also repackaged TV shows onto video cassettes. And one of those was Alien Autopsy. Kiviat Green Productions was a marginal TV production company, the kind of company that when you called the telephone number, it turned out to be Robert Kiviat's cell phone. And you could get Bob right on the cell phone. Robert Kiviat's personal connection to Fox went back to 1994, when he worked on the tabloid series Encounters: The Hidden Truth. The show's beat included ghosts, monsters, psychics, and UFOs, which made it perfect to slot in before the X-Files, exactly the slot in which Fox premiered Encounters in 1994. In 1995, Kiviat wrote and produced Alien Autopsy for Fox, and followed that up with two specials in 1997, UFOs, the best evidence ever caught on tape, and Miracles and Visions, fact or fiction. 1998 brought The World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed. And 2000 brought UFOs, the best evidence ever caught on tape, part 2. When you find a franchise, stick with it. Now, all of these programs were distinguished by their low production values, sensational tone, and biased presentation. Although News Corporation's Fox network acquired such programming from Kiviat and other producers, despite the fact that Fox ran this stuff quite often, News Corporation's 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment did not purchase the licensing rights to repackage as video cassettes. Instead, a number of them were picked up by Trimark, as I mentioned. So we have 4 companies: News Corporation, 1013 Productions, Trimark, and Kiviat Green. Already we can see the connections between News Corporation, Kiviat Green, and Trimark. While Alien Autopsy was the most famous artifact synergized by these firms, it was not the only one. Relevant to the synergy of Alien Autopsy was also the synergy of Kiviat Green's UFOs, the best evidence ever caught on film 1, and The World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Revealed. Besides that, 1013 synergized Alien Autopsy across 3 episodes. The first, a 2-parter, comprised by Nisi and 731, and also in a standalone episode, Jose Chung's From Outer Space. And I should note here that the title, Jose Chung's From Outer Space, could be heard as Mr. Chung used to live in outer space and moved here, or it could be heard as Mr. Chung's new book, From Outer Space. The second interpretation is the correct one. But you'll notice how they've set us up for ambiguity. Nisi aired on November 24th, 1995, 731 on December 1st, 1995, and Jose Chung on April 12th, 1996. Each of these programs, plus The World's Greatest Hoaxes, advocate a different interpretation of a rather infamous piece of film, the Santilli footage. And I see recognition flying across the room from face to face. So let me take a few minutes on the Santilli footage. This is a 15-minute clip of film that allegedly records the autopsy of an extraterrestrial who was killed when her flying saucer crashed outside of Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. The footage is named after Ray Santilli, who owned Merlin Productions, a small video company based in London. In 1995, Santilli announced that he had purchased the autopsy film from the 80-year-old retired military cameraman who allegedly shot it. Santilli promoted the footage to the UFO subculture in the United Kingdom and beyond. He ultimately contracted with Kiviat Green, and the footage appeared in Alien Autopsy, which Fox premiered August 28, 1995. 1 week later, Fox reran Alien Autopsy on September 4th. It was rebroadcast again on November 25th of that year, and I've confirmed 2 subsequent rebroadcasts, one in 1996 on July 21st and in 1997 on July 27th. This constituted one part of News Corporation's synergizing of Alien Autopsy. And the program did rather well for Fox. The show's debut was credited with breaking Fox's summer ratings slump. Autopsy beat reruns on ABC and NBC in terms of total homes viewing. Alien Autopsy also put Fox ahead of ABC, CBS, and NBC among 18 to 34-year-olds, among 18 to 49-year-olds, and among males in all age categories. There's a gender study there someplace. But Alien Autopsy was not just a US TV show. Between August 28th and 30th, Alien Autopsy premiered in approximately 40 countries, according to trade sources. I've identified 14 of those countries, among them Australia, New Zealand, UK, Hong Kong, Singapore, Finland, France, Italy, Brazil, and Canada. And I'm currently trying to trace more and also to trace the ownership of the stations and networks on which it premiered. But it should be noted that after Alien Autopsy's American debut, Fox used 3 of the 4 rebroadcasts as an audience-building tactic. The September 4th rebroadcast was paired with another special, The Secrets of the X-Files. This was the first of the X-Files documentaries that were used to set up each new season of the X-Files. The Secrets of the X-Files introduced viewers to an overview of the series, particularly to its so-called UFO myth arc. The co-scheduling between Alien Autopsy, Secrets, and ultimately X-Files encouraged viewers to link together and create intertext between Autopsy, Secrets, and X-Files. Now, 2 days after Autopsy's premiere on Fox, Trimark announced that it would rush videos into the stores by September 21st. The company initially repackaged the 45-minute television broadcast as originally shown. It later created a second version, which ran approximately 70 minutes and includes 17 minutes of autopsy footage and 4 minutes showing alleged crash debris, marketed thus. The video was sold in a typical video cassette box. The front panel you see is divided into 4 registers. On the top, you have the tagline, "In 1947, something happened in Roswell, New Mexico, ... Then we get a nice big-headed, big-eyed alien out of focus and in really sickly green. Superimposed on top are letters in a font very similar to the X-Files Introduction to Location fonts. And we have in red letters outlined in yellow, Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, a nice 16-pointed yellow star that promises contains extra, never before seen footage, plus the complete unedited Alien Autopsy. Down below we have the VidMark trademark, a notification this is for mature audiences only. And in the middle, our host, Jonathan Frakes. This is Mr. Frakes' portrait is from a period when he was somewhat younger than when he did the Alien Autopsy narration, as viewers will tell you. And it has his hairstyle, facial hair, very reminiscent of what he looked like when he was Commander Will Riker on Star Trek: The Next Generation. And he's wearing a dark sweater with no collar, kind of popping an eyebrow at us. And just in case you happen to miss the fact that Jonathan Frakes used to pretend to be a Starfleet officer out there in space and hang out with aliens, on the back in the credits they point out, hosted by Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek: The Next Generation. So we see a lot of intertext going on there to the X-Files and to Star Trek as well. So Trimark's marketing campaign was pretty big for a company of that size at that time. It included promotions in the Book of the Month Club newsletter, 20 mail order catalogs, newspaper inserts, and placement in chain stores like Best Buy and Blockbuster, pretty mainstream stuff. By November 18th, Trimark reported sales approaching 100,000 units and announced a special insert in Parade magazine on November 26th. This would be delivered to 1.5 to 2 million homes in Texas and Chicago. I'm not sure about the marketing logic of Texas and Chicago being treated as the same, but I think perhaps John can give us some insight on that later on. If the response was good, Trimark announced it would run another insert and parade to hit more potential buyers. Now, News Corporation seems to have been very helpful in assisting Trimark in its promotional efforts because it scheduled its next run of Autopsy, its third run, on the day right before the parade insert appeared. So you could watch Alien Autopsy on Fox for free, be primed to get the insert, and buy the tape. But the company went further than that. It sandwiched Alien Autopsy between the two parters from the X-Files, starting with the Nisi episode, which Autopsy directly followed, and then next week, 731. And then we have a little bit more synergy. At the time, News Corporation fully owned TV Guide magazine. And in TV Guide's Cheers and Jeers column, the columnist applauded the X-Files for its clever use of the Alien Autopsy motif in Nisi, which would be on that week, and 731, which would screen the next week. This indirectly also promoted Alien Autopsy, sandwiched in between the two shows with the very clever use of the Alien Autopsy motif. 1013 Productions gets into this as well. Nisi indirectly promoted Autopsy in a very interesting way. The program, of course, opens with a teaser. Half of the teaser showed Japanese scientists autopsying an extraterrestrial in a train car under the watchful lens of a video camera that was mounted way up in the corner of the room. Suddenly, military-looking men exploded into the room, splattering the scientists, the alien, and the furniture with machine gun fire. Mayhem ensued. Then we had the completion of the credits and the opening of the next scene with Fox Mulder sitting in his basement office watching this Alien Autopsy film on a TV. Scully entered and chided him, pronouncing his newly purchased tape, quote, even hokier than the one they aired on the Fox network. Conversation ensued as Mulder advanced his argument that his tape was not hokey. He replied that the striking lack of detail in his tape made it credible, while that autopsy you saw on TV was so fake precisely because it tried to show too much. When Scully remained skeptical, he fast-forwarded to the mayhem, and the plot was launched. These references in Nisi and TV Guide, plus Fox's scheduling of Nisi, Alien Autopsy, and 731, developed cross-promotional intertext. With further promotion in Parade, Trimark's hopes were high that Autopsy would sell 500,000 units by the end of 1996. Riding on this wave, Trimark synergized Autopsy again, repackaging it onto DVD. Fox's fourth broadcast of Alien Autopsy on July 21st, 1996 appears to be a solitary event, but not so the last broadcast on July 27th, 1997. 1997 was the 50th anniversary of the 1947 Roswell incident. And Fox used that to build commercial intertextuality surrounding both Alien Autopsy and the new Caveat film. Fox rebroadcast Autopsy on July 27th as a lead-in to the July 28th premiere of UFO's Best Evidence Caught on Tape, advertising both of them with Roswell themes. This brings us to the last Caveat special, dealing with Alien Autopsy. And I find this rather sad. In 1998, Caveat Productions recycled footage from Alien Autopsy to The World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed, which ran on Fox. To promote Hoaxes and its premiere on December 28th, Fox released press releases announcing an appearance by one of the hoaxers, plus, quote, all new footage and NASA-type video enhancement. It also promised scenes where, quote, inside sources and top professionals dispute the authenticity of the famed autopsy. As we consider News Corporation's uses of alien autopsy, we can clearly see that the conglomerate did not commit its full resources to the exploitation of the property and therefore did not control the commercial intertextuality that other firms synergized around the property. Instead, News Corporation used autopsy in a very limited way, leaving Kiviat, 1013 Productions, and Trimark to do as they will, whether it was to treat the artifact as worthy of a second version with new expanded footage, or to declare it hokey for showing too much, or to declare it a great hoax. In this case study of truncated synergy, we can identify 7 tactics variously used to synergize alien autopsy: rerunning it, News Corporation; scheduling, co-scheduling, News Corporation; referencing across artifacts, both News Corporation and 1013 Productions; repackaging by Trimark; reversioning by Trimark; and if News Corporation did what it claimed to do in the ads, if in fact each aircast of alien autopsy contained some new footage, then News Corporation would also qualify as a reversioner and recycler. Otherwise, recycling falls to Kiviat, and advertising, of course, between News Corporation and Trimark. As these practices built synergy, they also put forth contradictory claims, inviting viewers to make their own connections between alien autopsy, the X-Files, UFO, and hoaxes. This is quite unlike Time Warner's regimentation of Batman since 1984, or National Amusement's regimentation of the Star Trek franchise since it took over Paramount in the 80s as well. So we've traced the truncated synergy enacted by these 4 firms and the limited commercial intertextuality that resulted from their synergizing of alien autopsy. I'd now like to turn to a very clever and creative appropriation of autopsy by 1013 Productions in the X-Files episode, Jose Chung's From Outer Space. Chung premiered on April 12, 1996, and presented careful viewers with a considerably richer commercial intertext than Nisi or hoaxes. However, as far as I can tell at this point, Chung's intertext had no particular strategic use to News Corporation or to any of the other firms involved. So let us go now to see that richer commercial intertext. And I think to do so, we perhaps need to begin with a brief account of alien autopsy as a media artifact. First, Kiviat Green's autopsy, as I noted, ran 45 minutes. It played in a 60-minute slot on primetime on Fox. Viewers had to wait 17 minutes before getting to the program's core. And that core was a 7-minute sequence that included about 3.5 minutes from the Santilli footage. The sequence was narrated by Frakes, and it was accompanied by scary-sounding New Age music. The Santilli clips opened with a misshapen body lying on a table in a room. Because the monochrome images are saturated with white, very little detail is visible. To the body's left was a table with a tray of tools. The wall behind it sported a clock and a telephone, as well as a window that opened into another room. The body was shown from different angles. Its left leg and arm were damaged. The space between the legs were pixelated by Fox sensors. No naughty bits for anyone. Frakes described the movements of 2, quote, doctors in decontamination suits who pointed out the body's features while a similarly clad person looked through the window. The rest of the clip from the Santilli footage in Alien Autopsy follows no logical order. For example, at one point, we see the abdomen open on the table with the organs visible. In the next shot, we see the closed abdomen and the physician patting it. Similarly confusing is the camera work. The camera's view was frequently blocked. Sometimes this was due to a doctor walking in front of it. Other times it was due to the cameraman trying to shoot over a doctor's shoulder or from behind the doctor as the doctor worked. This was especially noticeable in the shot of the doctor sawing through the alien's skull. Images often went out of focus as the camera would move too close, and the camera also consistently panned away from interesting things like body organs in order to show you a saw on the tray or a doctor writing a note on a pad. Throughout the show, Jonathan Frakes asks balanced and fair questions. Is this really the autopsy of a being from another world, the most amazing event on Earth? Or is it a fantastically clever hoax? And then he follows with statements that presume it is, in fact, the most wonderful, amazing event in human history. We're constantly presented with skeptics who give their point of view, followed by believers who roundly denounce the skeptics. When believers present their points of view first, no one follows them. And Ray Santilli occurs every now and then to explain how it really, really is real, honest, for sure. So let's see a clip from the alien autopsy tape. We'll start with a shot of a camera. There are lots of shots of inanimate objects throughout this program. You have to fill 45 minutes somehow. So you'll have shots of the camera to represent the unknown cameraman. Then we'll see the skeptic, then the believer, then a little bit of the body, and also Ray Santilli.
Filmo cameras made by Bell & Howell. The camera did not have through-the-lens focusing. So if it maintained focus, there could be the possibility that it was done with modern-day equipment, which you can maintain focus, and that it was simulated rather than real footage from 1947.
Davio was also suspicious of the film's authenticity because of the photographer's apparent inability to get the best shots.
There's one case in particular where they're sawing the skull, where the person operating the camera continuously moves to a place repeatedly that he's not going to see anything, the doctor's back, and doesn't make the effort to go around the other side to look at the saw coming towards you and perhaps get a better view.
He keeps moving to keep out of the way of the surgeon. If you look at the surgical crew, they're moving also, and he's just trying to be inobtrusive.
We've had this out with the camera because if nothing else, his integrity in terms of camera work is the only thing that's actually forced the comment out of him, because people have criticised the camera work. The cameraman was dressed in the same outfits as the surgeon, so he was restricted in his movement. And he said that the handheld camera was standard issue at that time. They didn't treat it any different because it was either an experiment or an alien creature.
The role of
I would bet that any student project in film or television that looked like that in this school would flunk. This one, however, seems to have made a lot of money for some people. So it's easy to see why Scully and Mulder would talk about this as a pretty hokey autopsy in Nisi. The X-Files was known for that kind of ironic referencing. Less typical was the sort of referencing that we see in Jose Chung's From Outer Space. The episode is remarkable in its convoluted narrative, complex intertextuality, manipulation of television conventions, and meditation upon modernist and postmodernist notions of truth. To give you a sense of this, I'll briefly describe just one part of the teaser and the main premise, and then move to the episode's alien autopsies. Like most X-Files episodes, Jose Chung opened with a teaser depicting the mysterious event whose investigation formed the core of the episode. In this case, it was the abduction of two young lovers, Harold and Chrissy, from Harold's car by two gray aliens, and the subsequent abduction of all four of them by a large, hairy, red alien named Lord Kimboat. To underscore the strangeness of the tale, the teaser was full of visual and verbal tricks. And this is the opening shot, as you see it on the screen. The first thing you see is the huge night sky. And you hear choral music in the back, the kind of ooh, singing of awe, watch out, here comes the UFO type music that we're used to from the X-Files and dozens of other similar programs. Suddenly, out of one corner of the frame, moving with extraordinary slowness, comes what appears to be the bottom of a gigantic intergalactic craft. It's pitted and scored and mysterious. And as we watch it move across the screen, those of us who are attentive viewers begin to notice a tiny, whining, mechanical undernote on the soundtrack. And as that mechanical sound comes up and the ooh-ah chorus goes down, you begin to realize that you're looking at the bottom of an electric company's cherry picker. And you hear on the soundtrack the man in the cherry picker say, yeah, power's out. Yeah, I'll need one of those. The entire teaser is filled with tricks like this, and it is a great and true warning for what comes next. The episode's premise is based on two people having a conversation. I can see the excitement run through the room. Indeed, the conversation is started by Jose Chung, a world-famous novelist, who is interviewing Scully in Mulder's office in the pit and bottom of the basement of the FBI. The point of their discussion is Chrissy and Harold's case. Scully tells Chung the only reason she is there is because she's a great admirer of his work. And that's why she's agreed to be interviewed, quote, as long as you are attempting to record the truth. Chung, played by Charles Nelson Riley, replies, how could I possibly do that? Everybody in Class County has a different version of what truly happened there. Truth is as subjective as reality. Scully then offers Chung, quote, my version of the truth. And she recounts her experiences and stories, the stories she's collected through the investigation. Shots of Scully's and Chung's exchanges are interwoven with scenes. Some of them are flashbacks depicting what really happened. But others are sequences that look like flashbacks, but are actually visualizations of the story that's being told. And they do a very good job of tricking us into believing we're seeing the truth, and then at some point in the sequence, break the television conventions and let us know that they fooled us again. For example, you might have Mulder turn from the person being hypnotized to her parents and say it's an alien abduction, but his mouth slow. And we hear Scully in voiceover in normal speech speed say, alien abduction. Very, very clever stuff. Further complexity was interjected when flashbacks included details that were not disclosed to the storyteller was not disclosed by the storyteller when that person tells the story. And we hear the story in simultaneous voiceover, so we can hear the claims calmly made and see what actually happened, the events that contradict what's being told. As you would expect, over time, contradictory stories emerge. One contested account dealt with Scully's treatment of Blaine, a heavy-set youth who found one of the gray aliens dead in a field. Chung's version was presented first as a mixture of flashback and visualization, cutting between his interview with Blaine and Blaine's experience. The sequence opened in Blaine's sparsely furnished room as he explained why he'd like to be abducted. With his childlike voice, shaven head, and glasses, he seemed oddly vulnerable as he recounted how he found the alien corpse. While the screen showed Blaine nervously traversing the field, Blaine's voiceover calmly explained that UFOs had been sighted there, and he went there, quote, hoping to stumble across one. On screen, we see Blaine stumble across the body, fall flat on his face, and panic. To Chung, however, Blaine continues calmly in voiceover, regretting that he called the police rather than getting his video camera. He explains in measured tones that the police brought, quote, a couple of men in black. And we see a police officer who we've seen throughout the program, Detective Manners, get out of his unmarked car, accompanied by Mully and Sculder. Scully and Mulder. You know, I knew I was going to do that. It was only a matter of time. So on the scene, we see an absolutely terrified Blaine as his voiceover describes our well-known Scully and Mulder. One of them was disguised as a woman, but wasn't pulling it off. Like her hair was red, but it was a little too red, you know? And the other one, the tall, lanky one, his face was so blank and expressionless, he didn't even seem human. I think he was a mandroid. The only time he reacted was when he saw the dead body. Mulder goes on screen as Blaine's voiceover stops. Manners then pronounced the body, quote, one bleepin' dead alien. Scully orders the body removed, turns to Blaine, grabs his shirt, shines her flashlight into his eyes, and threatens his life. Blaine whimpers as she strides off. The sound of Scully's protest to Chung pulled the visual back to Mulder's office. Perturbed at the allegation, Scully noted that the agents had, quote, allowed him to view the autopsy. So let's see what Blaine sees at the autopsy.
He said I said what?
When I interviewed him, he claimed you threatened him.
That's ridiculous. And besides, we allowed him to view the autopsy.
Whoa. Hey, you can't suppress the truth. The people have a right to know. Roswell!
Hey! Does that camera work?
Is this actual footage of an alien autopsy, or simply a well-made hoax?
So this is footage of the actual autopsy you performed.
It's so embarrassing.
Who is that mysterious man who seems to be overseeing the proceedings? And what secret government agency does this autopsy doctor work for?
It's really interesting to see people who know what they're doing try to make it look like they don't know what they're doing. And I think they really succeed in that. As you look at it, you can tell just from that short snippet that the writer Darren Morgan, who played Blaine, and the director Rob Bowman are just having way too much fun with this whole thing. Blaine's Roswell evokes all things Roswellian, but given the presence of the body, it certainly evokes alien autopsy. The link is reinforced by the new age scary version of the X-Files soundtrack playing in the background. The visuals recall the alien autopsy in Blaine's moving camera, Mulder's walking and blocking of Blaine's shots, Scully's application of the saw to the skull. The cut to the stupendous Yappy, who we know from a previous episode is a fake psychic. And his carefully balanced question recalls Frakes, the fake spaceman, and his carefully balanced questions as well. While Dead Alien distorted the findings of Scully's real autopsy, ultimately both versions of that autopsy are not autopsies of aliens, a fact which may well be true of Alien Autopsy. The narrators for both autopsy video cassettes were actors, one playing a fake psychic and the other best known for pretending to be a Star Trek commander. And as they go back into the autopsy scene, Scully tells Chung the story of what really happened as Blaine discovers what she discovers. The alien is actually a costume that encompasses a dead man. As Blaine puts it, it's just a dead human body. Scully confirms his inference. He begins to get ill, grabs the camera, runs from the room, and sets off another set of incidents that combine into a whole new set of contradictory stories that the episode investigates before its closure, which we're not going to get to here. I think when we contrast Jose Chung and Nisi, we find some interesting differences. They both use impish humor, Nisi in order to forward the plot, Jose Chung in order to complicate its narrative. We see Hosky autopsies all over the place. When we look at Jose Chung, though, in contrast to Alien Autopsy, in contrast to Nisi, the other materials, Chung seems more like an elaborate game played by clever, creative people trying to take advantage of some slack time in the onerous business of manufacturing weekly episodes for a television series. And therein lies an interesting catch. For on one hand, the program is tremendously creative, and on the other hand, it is creative only in televisual and commercial terms. Jose Chung may have played with Alien Autopsy with greater latitude than Nisi or Hoaxes did, but that play was still constrained by an interconnected sets of rules designed to keep the series on track. The most immediate set of rules, of course, are the series Bible, the rules that define the X-Files symbolic universe and thereby limit choices that 1013's employees could make. For example, they could have Scully find a dead man in the alien costume, but they could never have Scully find evidence that the conspiracy did not exist. The basic premises of the series have to be protected in order for it to continue and for it to fulfill News Corporation's plans to recirculate the X-Files on Fox, to spin Scully and Mulder into a movie series, and to continue the show with a new dyad. Other forces disrupted those plans ultimately. But during the X-Files run on Fox, 1013 Productions and News Corporation were equally vested in synergizing the show and in turning the X-Files into a brand. Equally constraining was Fox's development of its paranormal programming niche, for which 1013 Productions created the X-Files and its spin-off The Lone Gunman, as well as Millennium. With these and such programs as Encounters, Alien Autopsy, and Conspiracy Theory, Did We Walk on the Moon? Fox was committed to building commercial intertextuality that emphasized irrationality and pseudoscience. And then, of course, we have the even larger set of rules for television in general, where every program is a vehicle for advertising and an environment in which advertisers' concerns and consumerism must always be respected. Thus, my dear colleagues, do we see how the truncated synergy enacted by News Corporation, 1013 Productions, Trimark, and Kiviat Productions develops sometimes contradictory, but always commercial intertexts around alien autopsy, fact or fiction. I thank you for your kind attention, and I look forward to your questions.